All right, now we're going. All right. So Jerome, nice job.
Thank you.
I just have to say that on for the recording. In case you didn't know, I'm Peter Olson, if you saw me in the live session, and Professor Wood is also teaching color theory, so we're working together and providing you some feedback together. All right, so Jerome, do you feel like you know what to do when you...
Yeah, absolutely. I actually made these changes like 5 minutes before we started. I had another image up, and I like the chain and the anchor idea, but I have some ideas now what to do and appreciate your guys' feedback.
Great. All right. Who's next? I'm not seeing your name.
We have Kyle and Josh.
Josh, okay. All right, so let's see. Do you guys recognize, if you see the work, it's hard to know who's in what section.
Here's Josh.
That would be mine.
Ah, Josh, okay. Your grandfather. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is some interesting, this is an interesting illustration and a fairly good use of the grays. You got the right number of grays and all. A couple things. The composition is not really great for a t-shirt because right now it's kind of more like a poster because it's framed, you know, on 4 sides.
Yes, sir.
So I would consider maybe ending these edges, particularly because of the geometric shapes. You could end those irregularly so that there isn't like a defined edge on them. And then you could probably find a more organic way to end his torso. I would almost, well, you want the arm in there, but like somewhere in there, you could sort of end him.
Maybe blending into the shapes.
Yeah, maybe the shapes could cut out part of the bottom.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
I do like that Art Deco feeling in the background with the composition. I'm wondering if a lighter gray would really make the figure up front pop.
Yeah, because you got that black shirt.
I can definitely give that a try.
Yeah, it would be pretty easy. It does look like you've got a couple little extra grays in here, so you're gonna have to check that out. It says his mouth is open.
Yes, sir.
So, like the upper lip, I guess it's the dark gray. It feels like there's dark gray and black. And the lower lip might have some light gray. The mouth just feels a little,
light.
Yeah, well, I'm saying you might add some light gray there. I don't know. It feels a little awkward at the moment. I would just check that out.
Not a problem, sir.
Again, pretty good sunglasses. And ears, they're always really hard. I would take some of your light gray and just put a little of that in the ear so that it doesn't look like it's got its own highlight, sort of popping it out. It may look like that in the photo, but it just stands out kind of oddly right now. So,
okay.
But good job overall.
Peter, just as a side note, Kyle's actual name is Joseph. So when we see his work, it's going to be under Joseph.
Okay, great. That's helpful.
I'm pretty sure I'm in Sabrina's class.
All right.
Okay. I like the composition of like the, you know, the way that he's looking off to the side.
Yeah. It's an interesting photo to use as a reference. So I like the hair too. You did a good job there. So nice work.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So Kyle is actually Joseph.
He's in my section.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Is that you?
Yeah.
All right. So you've got your hero is Stan Lee, and you've added some of his characters to the background. One thing, here, let me zoom out here. You've got a pretty cohesive look for this, even with the different characters and him. You added his signature. So it's an interesting illustration, but again, it feels a little more like a poster. And it looks like you might have too many grays. I mean, this should be black.
Mhm.
There's your dark gray, and that's your light gray. So the Marvel universe in the background, you've got some cool things going on with these sort of sticking out, but I would say the sky shape and maybe this planet or something, you could like sort of create a more organic edge so that it's not like just a poster.
Okay.
You might just even eat out some of these planets instead of rendering the rest of it. You would like just have a void. I don't know. Go ahead, Sabrina. Sorry.
No, I was going to say something very similar. Like, I'm not familiar with the character names, so forgive me. But the figure in the top right corner, I like, you know, the juxtaposition and how the arm extends outside of the frame. And so I
Yeah.
just like to see that hand finished. And so I totally concur with Peter. Like, you know, the way that you have Captain America's shield coming outside, I'd like to see all of the elements kind of break outside of that boundary.
Okay.
And I think it might be interesting too in terms of a juxtaposition, because we do have like perfect circles for the planets. If that Marvel badge in the background wasn't that same illustration technique, personal style that you have going on, but that was actually like crisp and the logo was crisp.
Okay.
And then like it would kind of contrast the two.
Okay.
This shape here, right?
Yes.
I do like the sort of like painterly edge here, and that's what I would love to see on that gray area.
Mhm.
A little more sort of painted background. Really good work, though. Another case of sunglasses. All right, so that's everybody who's currently here, right? You guys feeling good about this?
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, we'll just go through the rest. Since we're in Sabrina's section, we'll just start at the top. This is Amanda's.
Peter, is there any way that I could
Yes,
take control for just a second?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me find them.
Oh, wait. Because I have a new computer, I have to set up my system preferences again. Hold on. It's been like this constant things that have to be.
I don't know where my Zoom bar went away. So I don't know if I could take control.
You won't be able to until I fix this one thing. So.
Okay. Kyle, what does your last name mean? Is it French?
It's Swiss, and I have no idea, but it's pronounced inhabitant.
Okay.
All right, Sabrina, you should be able to do it now.
Oh, okay. I actually wanted to share a different screen.
Should it? I was giving you remote control of my mouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can they see my screen?
I don't know. Guys, can you see her screen?
I have U-Haul up?
Yes,
Yep.
you have U-Haul up.
Kyle
Right.
shook his head no. Okay. I just wanted to like pass this on as a resource to you guys. I just thought this was really cool. And this is if you go to U-Haul and you type in super graphics, they have all of the graphics that they put on the side of their trucks here. And the super graphics are really detailed, but if you click back over to the classic graphics, these are the ones that I thought would just be really apropos in terms of like 4-color designs and the 4 grayscales and things like that. So I saw like some people just were a little maybe unsure of, you know, how much detail to add. And I just thought that this would be something that maybe you guys would like to look back on later as a resource. I can throw it up in the chat field. So, but, you know, just, you know, in terms of like, what is the project? Okay, it's a 4-color job. Okay, then I should add this amount of detail, you know, to get the proper amount of highlights and shadows and so forth. So anyway, for whatever it's worth, I just wanted to pass that on to you guys. We already talked about yours. So any questions? No? Should I just go through mine then, Peter?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I came across the first one by Amanda, and she chose her son. Her and her husband had trouble conceiving, and they finally had their son. So this is, you know, I love you to the moon and back. Just my recommendation would be to stay away from like system fonts. This is obviously that marker felt tip. It doesn't really have much personality because everybody sees it. So, you know, with Adobe giving you access to thousands of fonts, I would recommend, you know, finding a font that just has a little bit more personality to match the look. The other thing, you know, I like the composition. I really like, you know, the way the highlights hit the face and so forth. The other thing that I would consider, you know, tweaking is even if the photograph had this, for example, this little nudge that you see here, it doesn't necessarily feel natural. So you can, you know, just eliminate it. You know, if you see something, you don't feel like you have to trace it exactly as is. You know, if it looks a little awkward, then, you know, change it. So like when I see this angle here, my eye kind of wants it to go here. So I would, you know, obviously move that up a little bit. And then just in here, there just seems to be a little bit of, you know, these lines that would need to be addressed. So this is another thing that I kind of saw was that people took the time to render the shapes, and then when they came to the eye, they used the stroke for part of it. And I would just recommend that you know, render every shape and not use the stroke tool. It just helps it keep that same cohesive feel. And then finally, like even if the teeth came across dark in a photograph, our mind reads them as white. So I would recommend using the lighter, one of the lighter colors, either the light gray or the white in there. Now, I also think people should stay away from easily rendered shapes in Illustrator. So let me see if I can jump over to Illustrator for a second. So with the star tool, so rather than just, you know, clicking and drawing a star, because this star to me always has a very strange look to it, just know that you can click the tool once, click your pasteboard once, and you can determine what radius 2 is going to be so that you can make it look, you know, a little bit more, you know, however you want it to look, right? And then of course with Illustrator, they've added, you know, the corner radiuses too, so you can, if they seem to, like, the lines seem to terminate forever, you can just add, you know, a slight curve to them if you want. And something like that might have added a little bit more to the childlike feel. So that would be my recommendation for that. But I thought like the highlights and the shadows looked really nice. Peter, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was going to say that about the star tool too. You don't have to have a 5-pointed star. You can make them more custom. Yeah, I like that idea.
So. And then in terms of the text on a path, another thing that, sorry, I don't mean to keep jumping back and forth between my screens. Another thing with the text on the path tool, right? So let's say you have your circle And so I have my text. And I'll cut my text, grab my text on the path tool. I usually like to use the, paragraph centered option, and then it just kind of makes it easier when I put it on here, but either way, so I'll go ahead and highlight this. Let's choose, something other than,
Yeah.
let's get the font big. But so anyway, I'm not saying to choose that, sorry, but so let's say you just, I'll just, whatever, anything but Comic Sans, right? You can just scroll through your fonts, and of course you can add fonts from Adobe. And, once you get to whatever you want, I'm really picky with fonts, so I'm sorry. Not that. All right, so I'll just stop to be sane. There's a couple ways that you can move the text away. So one way is you can go back and double click the Type on a Path tool, and you can choose how it's aligning. So currently it's aligning to the baseline, but you can also choose to either align it to the center. So if you ever need the text to be in the center of the line, you can do that. Or you can choose to align it to the descender. And you can just see that it'll bump it up. Now, if that's not getting you what you want, then you can come over to your character tool. And I'll just, usually you see your character panel like this, just double click on the tab to expand it completely. And then you can come to your baseline shifting tool, and then you can just shift it up slightly. So I would just recommend for that picture to just set the text off just a little bit. It kind of feels a little strange that it's just sitting on the moon itself. So, any questions on any of that? All right. So we've already gone over that one. All right, so now we come to this one. Let me zoom out a little bit. Can you guys see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Robert, and this is his father. And they like to do a lot of activities together. And he put him in a 52 card deck because his father just turned 52. And he want, kind of honoring the tattoo look as well. So they like to play poker and so forth. My initial reaction is I like the idea of the deck of cards. It's an interesting way to frame the composition. What I'd like to see pushed a little bit further is the actual illustration of the face. There seems to, the shapes themselves, they're just not quite as much detail, highlights, or smoothness to the lines. So I'm sure, like, how does the light hit the nose and the crown itself, it can't possibly just be one color. And then, just how the hair flows in some areas. This shape here, I'm not completely understanding. So I'd like to know, like, what this exactly represents. Possibly because you have this almost like Python figure. It would be interesting if it was the larger image of the Python in just one color. But overall, I just like to see more detail, particularly like, a highlight on the eye and just some of that. Peter, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I would just say when you think of the face, you have to think of how everything's defined by light and shadow. Right now, you pretty much got a monochromatic skin tone and then a couple of white, like just one sort of highlight of white. Your light gray back here is not really being used effectively. I think it could add to the highlights on the nose and then on the forehead. You are doing the glasses with the, but the eyes are kind of an odd shape, and it looks like probably there's like a big highlight on the glasses that's interfering with the view of the eyes. So I would sort of cheat that a little bit so you could see the eyes. You know, the photo just gets you only so far, and then you got to figure out your own way of doing it. The lips, upper lip typically has a little bit of shadow. The lower lip catches a little light. So think about light and shadow in terms of how the lips are defined. And I think that'll help you get to a better place with all this. Also, the beard and hair, I would take your dark gray and use it to create little indications of highlights. You don't have to draw every hair, but just so that it's not a big, massive black void.
Okay,
That's-
thank you. Okay, I only have one more for my class. And Miss Rachel has chosen to do our Supreme Court Justice. And I really thought this composition was strong, like I could immediately recognize her. So the details were done really well. I think some of, maybe a little bit more, shadow and highlight on the face, and with this jawline, maybe that could be reconciled into a shape instead of just looking like a stroke line. And then even in some of these places where it looks like, the light hasn't quite hit the pearl, maybe you could just, just do a render of like almost like a, quarter moon shape or something, just so we can, see like part of the shape that's not, obviously showing up quite as much in the photograph. What I'm not quite getting from the illustration is the way that it cuts off. So I think that you could come up with something really creative. I was looking at like law motifs, and obviously you see like a lot of, Greek symbolism. And then you see like, gavels and things like that. So possibly this image, instead of this geometric shape in the background, you could have either done the wheat, which I don't know would be apropos or not, or you could even have just framed this with a really large gavel at the bottom, and that could have been like a really loud statement. And possibly her name could have fit on there. But this I'm not feeling quite as much. So think about, form follows function, So what would be best, how does that geometric shape, with everything being very organic, how does this precision then tie in? Peter, what would you like to add?
I agree with all that. I would say that your light gray and your dark gray are too close in value. If you have more difference in the value, I think you'll find them more useful in creating shape and dimension in the face. For instance, these shadow lines here are currently your light gray, and they could be the dark gray. And if your light gray was a little bit lighter, it would sort of create other sort of more subtle shadows on the face, and that may help you get there.
You could also write the word dissent on the gavel,
Yeah.
instead of her name. So just an idea. So that's it for my class.
That's a nice portrait.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and go back to your screen.
All right. Back up to the top, section 1. You guys seeing this all right?
I still see Ruth.
Hold
I still
on.
see Ruth.
There we go. How's that?
See it now.
All right, Heather, this is your late grandmother, and it's a beautiful idea. I love the composition, and her face has this wonderful, sweet expression. The one thing, so the shapes that you defined here feel very kind of rough. And I think that you could go through and sort of eliminate some points and sort of smooth out some of these shapes, and you'll have a much better illustration. You're struggling a bit with the hair. You're using some, I would create a brush or something to create a little bit of indication of highlight. Because right now this looks like a bunch of jaggy shapes instead of hair highlights. These flowers are wonderful, and they'll be fun to color. I love the little swirl in there. There's some nice stuff. The dates written here feel a little kind of harsh, like they're they're very utilitarian. I don't know if they're personally, I wouldn't put the dates. I would put something else a little more personal about her. So her head could be bigger within the frame too. And without the dates there, it might fill out a little further down. But that's kind of my initial take. What do you think, Sabrina?
I mean, my comment was about the dates as well. I wasn't sure if it went larger in size or if it was the same size, but the visual hierarchy made the death date seem a lot larger, maybe because it's wider, the numbers with the additional, ones. And so kind of like, when you want to honor somebody, you don't, really want to focus so much on, what brought a conclusion to their life, but kind of just the whole life itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, like you said, something else would be more fitting. I too like the flowers and how that is, but I'd like to see the neck kind of come down a little bit further, and same comments about the hair and so forth.
Yeah. All right. So that's Heather. I noticed a couple of people joined us, Lisa and Elena. I would love to get to their work next. Elena's in this section.
This is Lisa. Right, no, go back up. This is.
Oh, there's Lisa. Okay. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, sorry, my dog was going to start barking, so I had to go grab him.
Oh, no, we're fine. All right. We're just looking at your work now. So this is your boyfriend, Jay.
Yes.
And he's into steampunk stuff, which is a lot of fun. You've added some cool elements to the background to give that steampunk feeling, and certainly the photo reference, he's got the costumes and everything. What I would say, first off, is the Illustrator file feels very much like it was taken straight from the photo. So there's all these little artifacts in here that are created by translating the photo into Illustrator. So what I want you to do is you can use the smooth tool, or you can go in and delete points, but make all these shapes feel very intentional so that they're just what you would want and not sort of picking up pieces of the photo. Like this would be a line here instead of these little jaggy shapes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then when you get that sort of straightened out, you might want to put a little highlight in the eye. These background elements are super geometric, and so when you clean this up, it'll have a more cohesive look. Also, the composition feels very much like sort of a poster because of the cropping at the base of him. There's a number of things you could do. First of all, I don't know how important this hand gesture is, but I might just eliminate that altogether because it's a lot of work for something that maybe isn't part of the concept.
Okay.
I love
he was
this.
blowing a kiss. That's the only reason I kept it in there.
Oh, is that what he's doing, Lisa?
Yeah, he's blowing a kiss.
All right, so leave the hand in. But you could sort of figure out a more organic way to sort of finish the edges. Maybe you could use one of these gears as sort of a stamp to cut out areas in the gear shape around the bottom.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. And then, yeah, some of these things are very geometric, so they'll be easy to render out. And a little highlight in the eye.
Okay.
But cool concept. You're on a good path there.
Thank you.
Your thoughts, Sabrina?
What's that on his finger?
He has a ring that doesn't go all the way down, so it's around his knuckle. I could remove that.
So that's the part where I'm talking about, like, sometimes you have to break away from the photograph and do what cognitively people understand, just so there's no confusion.
Okay.
So I would either move the ring down and add some highlight to it, or just eliminate it altogether. And then I think that way the kiss will become more obvious.
Okay.
Yes. And when you get married, it goes down all the way. That's
Perfect.
all right. Elena. There you are. Look, you were next. So this is your best friend, Laura,
Yes.
an ICU nurse, God bless her. This is a cool illustration. Her eyes are super compelling the way you've got them rendered. They're very piercing and they work. The mask, which is a necessary thing nowadays. I feel, so this is just sort of like you look at it and you get this general impression. There's a large area of empty space. I don't know if there's texture or something that could break that up. The focal point is clearly the eyes, and that's working well. But this just sort of becomes a big empty space. Sort of draws your attention as well. So
Okay.
I would consider sort of how to break that up a little bit.
About the same amount of detail that you have on the cap would be fitting.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
add some highlights and shadows.
Yeah, I think that'll help. The composition, you've got these geometric shapes. Do they have some significance?
I was struggling with the background. I got an allergy attack this week, and so my brain wasn't braining, and I was trying to just get something in the background to kind of finish it, and that's what my brain came up with.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know that you need all that. I think that maybe you could create some sort of containing shape for her head,
Okay.
and then add the medical symbol in there somehow.
I have an idea as well. It'd be kind of cool because like her neck kind of cuts off. If maybe the snake started wrapping around her neck at the bottom and then kind of just went behind her.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So something to maybe experiment with.
Okay.
But this is real good work. You're off to a really good start.
Thank you.
You could take some of your dark gray and maybe create a little bit of texture in the eyebrows so they look a little more like hair instead of ink. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good job.
Thank you.
All right, we have Jason. We haven't done yours, right?
No, not yet. No.
Are you in this group? Does this look
Yes,
familiar?
yeah.
All right.
Towards the bottom.
Ashley. Michelle. Lisa. Michelle. Cheyenne. Heather.
Maybe hit refresh. I don't know. Are you sure you're in this group?
Did you just submit it?
Yeah, it was right before the meeting started.
All right. We got you. Oh, we got a few new additions. Yes. Is this you?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. So you like to draw. You're good with pencil. And this is a music producer that you like. I think the composition.
I was debating a lot on who I should go with. So.
Well, that's good to put some thought into it. The flowers are a great idea. I see that there's a composition there. Now, when you get into Illustrator, you're having a little bit of trouble because you don't have this sort of subtle gradation that you get to do with pencil and all that. So one thing that's hurting you a bit is when you put strokes on everything. So these shapes, if they represent shadows, right? When you put a stroke on it, it just sort of like kills the effect altogether. So if you
I had noted that I was going to remove the strokes.
Yeah. So I think if you do that right away, you'll be in better territory. The other thing is your light gray and dark gray are a little too close in value. I would make your light gray lighter.
Okay.
And I think that'll help you start to build it out. As far as rendering goes, you've done a great job rendering this. So I think once you get your feet under yourself in terms of like understanding the values, how to work them in Illustrator, you can add some highlights to the hair and you'll create the flowers and it'll probably come out great.
Definitely. Thank you.
Your thoughts, Sabrina?
I really like that he included this sketch so we can see, you know, his vision, because obviously they didn't have to finish everything at this point. I kind of liked the angle of the sketch too.
The head
like
is tilted
yeah.
more.
Yeah, but but yeah, I just agree. Like, just tweaking that mid-tone gray. Actually, both of the mid-tone grays, just to get a little bit more contrast, would push it a lot further.
Definitely. Okay, we'll do.
Because this, yeah, you've got like 3 grays right there. So if this dark gray was more in this value range, and then the light gray was a lot lighter, I think you'd find that you have the palette. I mean, it's always like an abstraction when you're using such a limited palette.
Mm-hmm.
So you just sort of have to figure out the visual language that works for that, and then you'll go to town on it.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. Do we have someone else here that hasn't been critiqued that is present? No? All right, I'll go back up. Let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, all right. So here's Cheyenne. This is your stepfather. So this composition is set up to work on a shirt. There's a certain amount of, you need to have a little more cohesion in terms of the style and look of things. This parachute is very dominant because of these big thick strokes. I would maybe do that as more of a, because he was a paratrooper, I would do that as a solid color and maybe have it be just sort of in the background, faded more. I like this technique here. I feel like there could be a little more detail in some of the features in the eyes and around the nose. I would sort of focus on getting that right, because that's kind of the key part of the portrait. And as Sabrina noted earlier, these sort of click once, create a star is not a good look. Plus, this is a sort of like just a 5-pointed star instead of like a, I don't know what you call it, the Texas star that's flat across the top. Do you know what that's called, Sabrina?
I don't. I would call it the Texas star.
Yeah, you know what I mean though, right?
Yes.
Which if you hold the Option key down when you draw out a star, it'll make it like that. But this stuff, it feels, it needs to pull together more. I would get more of this stuff behind him, sort of, it feels like, because this is big black strokes up here, it feels like a whole other illustration is trying to happen behind him. I just like the wings, and I think that you could maybe indicate a silhouette of a parachute. The star may or may not be necessary, and then you have a nice composition. I like the way you treated these wings very subtly. You got any other thoughts, Sabrina?
I'm so sorry. I was answering a text message. So I'm wondering if the wings, because like the way that it almost has that brush off look, like a watercolor for the.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that can incorporate into the wings a little bit more, and then just like you said, a little bit more organicness to the parachute itself, so it doesn't just to kind of match the rest of the look. So.
Yeah. So yeah, it's common visual language. All right, Michelle. I thought Michelle was here. No. All right, Michelle, you're doing your grandfather as well, Vietnam War veteran. He liked hunting. So right now, I feel like the composition has to come together a little more. I appreciate the fact that you're using the deer horns because you liked hunting, but they seem like a very kind of odd element to try to incorporate with his face. You have a sort of a distinctive style starting to appear here, so I think that could work. It's pretty geometric, like you're not using a lot of curves, but it might work okay. You've got clear lighting situation and you're making the shadows work, but like, for instance, these straight lines here on the shadow feel wrong to me, like they should be curved like the nose. Just some cleanup and sort of make the shapes a little more intentional. And his hair, it has like one little highlight right there. I feel like it should have maybe a little bit of texture highlight to give it more hair look. It looks like the right number of grays. But yeah, some of this very geometric stuff, I feel like it's a little off. You got any thoughts, thoughts, Sabrina?
No, I just I concur with you. Just,
All right.
yeah.
I like the way you handle the teeth. You know, some people try to draw every gap between every tooth, just sort of indicating a little bit of that is part of a better way to go. And you've got this little textured edge on the lips, which works really well. So lips are hard to do. You might take a little highlight on the lip, but I don't know.
If this particular student needs some like tutoring with working with curves, you know, you're more than welcome to set up a session with you or me on the side, and we can just,
Yeah.
you know, help with that, because everything just has a very like, you know, harsh line to it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, there's some curves.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this shadow along here, you know, you should pull out and make that an arc instead of a straight line, and things like that, where you just sort of go through. This would not be super geometric like that. Maybe it's just a little more time to get it straight. All right. Ashley. Rihanna. Yeah, it does look like Rihanna. So this is, your light gray and dark gray seem too close together. The dark gray maybe should be a little darker, and the light gray could be a little lighter, and that would help you. This one eye is done really well. The fact that she's just cropped into a box in the middle feels really odd to me. And I would love for her braids to come out the rest of the way. You know, I don't know, you probably don't have enough photo reference to do the rest of the top of her head. These geometric shapes feel pretty arbitrary and just sort of snapped in there. So I don't know if there's something a little more dynamic you could do with the background. Like this big rectangle feels like, I don't know, really get what that's functioning as. The lighting and shade scenario is working a bit, but I feel like it just needs, you need more attention to detail, sort of cleaning up some of these rough edges, making the lines a little more intentional, and maybe separating her face and neck from the background, because right now it sort of blends in different ways. I just don't know if the background's really working for you.
And I think too, with that darker gray, you could just really add a couple of the little highlights of, you know, the braids.
Yeah. So the blades aren't just black, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is, we did Lisa. Elena. All right, Michelle. This is your husband, Ricky Dean. I feel like we should have heard of him with that name, Ricky Dean, right? All right. So, a couple things that we've already talked about. The star, make it distinctive, make it your own. That's a big feature of this illustration, this composition. I think maybe it's like a little too much of a star.
It's detracting from the visual hierarchy.
Yeah, it's like
fighting for attention. So
it's like he's an adjunct to the star. Should be the other way around. There is an enormous lack of detail here. You need to like get into that face and make it your own. Right now, it feels like a lot of little artifacts from the photo, from translating the photo. The arm is very oddly shaped, and you need to clean this up and figure it out. I would focus on his face first and try to get that right, and then go into the arms. you've got the right number of grays. You're not really using black very much as a shadow in the face. It's just the 2 grays and white, and the black of the eyes. The nose, you can see there's like no nose. Just noses are defined by the shadows, so you want to go in and figure that out. If the photo is blurry and hard to see, you should use another reference to try to get some of the details, or just try to create your own. I get the boxing gloves. I like the pose and everything. Yeah, I just think this star needs to go maybe in the background, or maybe be much smaller in the foreground somehow. And then keep your composition well. But any other thoughts, Sabrina?
Yeah, I concur with that. So, and then if you're going to add the text into the star, just like balance it within that composition of the star as well.
Right. So
it looks like she just pressed enter and then wrote my hero instead of really figuring out the space and
yeah,
yeah.
pick a good font. Impact and what's the default one?
Myriad Pro.
Yeah, Myriad. Yeah. All right, Ashley. This is your late grandfather, National Guard. This is a wonderful line drawing, and it has a lot of personality, very distinctive. It's not really a great demonstration of using light and shadow. This looks like it's a light gray here, and that should probably be white. I would, so like this shadow on the face has a stroke on it. Essentially what you've done is you've sort of created your own sort of coloring book here. Now you need to color it. So like take that stroke off, add a little bit of shadow under the lips, maybe a shadow on the upper lip, some shadows around the nose, under the eyebrows, and create more shape and dimension there, because right now it's very flat. It's a great composition. I think it's good rendering. It's got a distinctive style. So there's a lot of good things going on here. I think it's just a matter of sort of grappling with how to use the grays to create shape and dimension. You got any thoughts, Sabrina?
No, I concur. I'm sorry, I keep saying that.
That's all right. I just want to give you a chance to comment if you've. All right, we have a lot of military people. So this is your twin brother, Keith. So this this looks like an interesting composition. You've kind of got flag stripes going there, some stars. So this could work as a composition. Now, a couple of things. First of all, there's a lack of detail in the face, the eyes. It looks squished for some reason. Like I feel like the aspect ratio is squished down, and everything looks a little distorted. So I would sort of, from a rendering standpoint, sort of figure out the shapes so you get those right. You're doing a thing with the strokes. It's almost like a pen and ink, like a washes under with ink, which I think could work. But like his, oops. So like his chin, you know, this, all these sort of little details make it either create the illusion or diminish it, right? It doesn't like quite work with the line, and then it goes down here. It doesn't go around the chin. His neck seems too far out. It's like a little distorted or something.
The one thing it seems that the student doesn't maybe quite grasp the concept of object arrange, where they can,
Oops.
Draw an object larger and send it to the back so that you don't have those gaps in between. It's like they're trying to draw back over the exact same lines.
Yeah, instead of using the shape as a, yeah.
Like, up in the hat area or, whatever, even where the hair, it seems like they're just having a hard time because they're trying to match the lines. So
yeah.
they can certainly, draw the shape and use the Pathfinder Divide tool if they need them to fit perfectly. Or, or just, draw it a little bit larger and then just have the objects be behind.
Overlap, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of has like a
And then
cutout
you can wrap
paper
all that
look.
up with the merge tool eventually.
And now we'll say this again about the stars. Don't just click and make a star. Make them distinctive. If you want a military star, hold down the Option key when you draw out the star and see if you like that star better. And that may help you. All right, that is all for this section. That's your section. This is the other section. All right, Christopher, your dad, Fred, a United States Air Force Master Sergeant. This is great. It's got a distinctive look. You've created an interesting composition. The American flag, it's all working. It's got the right number of grays. I feel like there's a little bit of lack of detail in some of the face. I don't like the way this crops as at an angle. I appreciate that you're breaking it up, but I think that if you sort of break this implied rectangle up even further, it will help you. It may be more of a curve or something that sort of parallels the line of the neck. The hair looks good. More sunglasses. So yeah, that's the basics. I just like a little more detail in the face too. Any thoughts, Sabrina?
I liked the angle and the
Yeah.
fact that the planes are flying up and that he looks like he's looking up in the sky. I thought that was strong motif. So.
Yeah, it is nice. And the sunglasses are done pretty well. Yeah, it's a powerful composition. It's in good shape, Christopher. So just a little tweaking.
I'm not sure, like, I like the juxtaposition of the way that, part of this object's being light and dark.
Oh, this checkerboard look?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think, setting them in the light gray might have worked better.
Yeah, just set them in front. Maybe the Air Force symbol works.
That seems to be the strongest one for that.
Oh, good work, Christopher. All right. So we did this one. Marquise, this is good composition. Wakanda. So this is Michael B. Jordan. You've got a lot of good stuff going on here and a good composition, and it looks like him. There's a lot of good things. The use of gray is off. You've got too many grays. See, there's a dark gray, a light gray, a medium gray. So you've got to figure that out. And the face, right now, these don't look like light and shadow. They look just like sort of random shapes in the front of his face. Especially like when you have this light gray sort of overlapping the dark gray, and then there's just too many grays. So you've got to remap this in terms of light and shadow. If you look at your photo reference and take it into Photoshop and posterize it, and you might get a better idea of how to map out the light, the shadows and highlights. But number one is too many grays. So his upper lip would be a little darker. The lower lip might be a little lighter.
And that flower motif in the background, I think that's just a brush, yeah?
This?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not seen it before, but it looks cut off.
Yeah. I don't know. That's the part I would, change as well, just how those elements incorporate with each other.
Yeah, these shapes, because they're very pointed and they have big, thick black strokes on them, they dominate visually, and that's not really where you want the attention. I would probably, if you just made the strokes a lot thinner, they would be a little more subtle and enhance the face rather than detract from it, which they're doing now. They're sort of like taking it away from that. You get another gray here as well. There's like 4 or 5 grays instead of 2.
You can go and use the select same option and then, start just recoloring things rather than having to select them all individually.
Well, yeah, sometimes that works. Yeah, so in the video, I show you how to do that. I like where you're going though. This
Mhm.
Wakanda Forever type really stands out dominant as well. The overall composition, I feel like it should be like a little tighter and more integrated. I'm just not loving these shapes. I understand they come from the movie, but
I think too, like, when you look at the Wakanda, it has those, rounded edges. And
yeah,
so I tried to like make my motifs match. So he could take the triangles out of the text, create outlines out of it and maybe incorporate that
yeah,
instead, and then it would feel more cohesive.
yeah. Good idea. All right. This is your cousin, Crystal, and he's into science. This is good. I like it. It's good composition. It's got a distinctive sort of personality to it. Good use of light and shadow. So here's some things that bug me. The hair is too detailed. It doesn't match the visual of the rest of it. These little lines also feel out of place. There's not enough of them to really be part of the visual language. What you would do for this little kind of beard thing is sort of create a shape and then add a tiny bit of textured highlights or something. You want to sort of imply it because the level of detail in the face doesn't match that level of detail. I mean, the other way to go is to drastically increase the detail in the face, but I don't know if I want to send you off in that direction. The eyes feel very sort of like a black void, maybe a little highlight somewhere in there. The way his shoulder ends in this sharp drop right here feels off. I would finish that in some organic way, and also the bottom, maybe the word science just sort of eats out the bottom of his shirt, and that would work.
Sounds like, yeah.
This is a distinctive, unique type. I hope that you created that because it looks great. The shadow under his chin feels like a big, huge black void. I would rethink kind of how his neck is rendered. I don't know that it would be that much black. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I like the idea of the molecules and those type
Yeah.
of symbols. And how they're kind of unfinished too. On the right side, they look a little more unfinished. Maybe add a little bit more unfinished on the left side as well.
Yes. Yeah, that would help. All right. Overall, good work though. All right. So Josh, we did you. That's it. That's all we got. All right. So I hope you guys got some helpful information, some inspiration, and we're looking forward to seeing how your work comes out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where you guys take it from here.
Oh, we'll be on tomorrow. Are you going to be on tomorrow, Sabrina?
Oh, what's tomorrow?
I was going to do another critique tomorrow at midday.
Oh,
It's just a
I'll have to
follow-up.
check my schedule.
Yeah, sorry. It's just a
Okay.
follow-up for anybody who didn't get it in by noon today.
Okay. I'll let you know tomorrow morning. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine. Or you can either show up or not. That's fine.